Welcome to episode 2 of Beyond the Build podcast, where we talk about the software engineering career from our perspective. I'm here with my host, Ope Okunchoya, and today's topic, we're talking about technical interviewing, right? So we have some takes, right? We'll first kind of give our opinions, and then from there, we'll kind of just talk, have like a debate, have like a rebuttal, for lack of a better word, because we've had this conversation before, and I think we had different viewpoints, and it'll be interesting to talk about it on air and, see what other people think as well. But we already know what the general consensus is. But yeah, let's dive into it. So to start, I want us to talk about our experiences with technical interviewing, right? So you're a software engineer at Zillow. You're a senior software engineer. My bad. I have to put some respect on your name.
That's good.
You're a senior software engineer at Zillow. What was the process to get into Zillow, like in terms of the technical interview process?
It was pretty decent. Let me see what happened. I was at a conference, and I'd done like a lot of back-to-back interviews. So
With Zillow or with other companies?
with other companies. So Zillow the questions felt very much along like the line of one of the interviews I'd just done. I think it was at Visa actually. And I was like, yeah. And the guy was asking me questions that were just right down the alley of stuff I just prepared for. So yeah,
Were those behavioral questions? Were they like
no, it was
technical?
like technical, like it was a technical programming
Okay.
type questions, right? And it was just asking me questions that were, I can't recall what specific questions they were, but like they were questions that were like just in my memory from stuff I'd done. And it was a whiteboard session. So yeah, did that and it went really well.
Okay.
I think I did like 2 or 3 back to back, and it went really well. And yeah, I got my internship. So I got converted from Zillow as an intern. I didn't have to go through the I didn't have to do that interview to get in as a software engineer.
Okay. My experience for Microsoft was similar, but I didn't intern at Microsoft. So they kept coming every year to interview at my college campus, but I just didn't care, bro. I just, you know what I mean? I was like, I already have this internship with this smaller company. Yeah, maybe they may not be paying me as much, but at the time they were paying me more money than I knew what to do with, right? And the idea of, packing all my stuff and going all the way across the country to Washington or to California, when I could just drive up north to like Minnesota, spend some time there where I was used to and then all that stuff. So I didn't care. But my final year, I was like, okay, I've done these interviews several times and I failed them, right? Like, no, there were some of them where I was like, listen, halfway through, I just told the guy, I was like, bros, you've asked me this question, right? I'm out here trying to explain my thought process. The thought process is not processing at all, right? Let me just save you time. Let's just save it, and then let's just get off the call. And so my final year, I was like, all right, I've done this so many times. Let me actually figure out what I was doing wrong in all those ones. So I was like, okay, let me prepare. I prepared. I practiced so much. I did Pramp, where it's like you interview someone for 30 minutes, they interview for 30 minutes, boom. And then I did it so much that they ran out of questions for me on the platform.
Ooh.
Yeah, I practiced so hard, bro. Right. I practiced. And then after that, I eventually went into the interview, and then the question that they gave me, first question they gave me, I hadn't seen it. So I practiced so much and I hadn't seen it. And then eventually I think I actually got in because I was a very strong cultural fit. They asked me about a project on my resume, and I was like, I was mentoring this freshman. Like, tell me more about that mentorship session. And then I told them, and they're like, all right, great. And then I heard that I was moving on to the next session. But then when I then got on campus and I did like the 4 or 5 back-to-back LeetCode, I was banging those out, man. Easy, right? I had seen all of them because I had done all the practice. They would give me a problem, be like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, bros, I've seen this problem before. I'm telling you because I'm honest. And I know you're trying to see how I think. But you can't see how I think if I just tell you the answer right away, if I give you the most optimal way, right?
Fair.
So I've seen this and they were like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Just still do it. And I'm like, all right, bet. Blah, 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 blah. Do it. There was some when they gave me an even more complicated version of the problem. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it took me time, but I still ended up solving it. And then that's how I got my offer at Microsoft. At Netflix, very, very similar as well. But their questions were actually simple. I think Netflix is more of a heavily culture fit company. And as far as you have the work experience for the field you're getting hired for, then the technical part shouldn't be too bad, at least from my experience.
That's right. I actually got a I got a job at CNN
As a software engineer.
as a data engineer.
Oh,
Um, this was in 2022. I got in as a principal. I didn't take it though. I don't know, something about the whole thing just fell off. And
CNN hiring you as a data engineer.
yeah, and it was like it was. I was having conversations with my director that was gonna hire me then, and it was going really good. But also, like a lot of the riff I was getting off of him was like the project and the team was very experimental. And I was like, yeah, this is really cool to be hired to do experimental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have my green card at that point.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to go take a risk. Like it was going to be a promotion for me. I wasn't going to go take a risk and get principal at CNN. And then they'll be like, oh, we're shelving the project. And crazy story. That's actually what happened. So it was a role at CNN Digital. And I think like 7 or 8 months after they folded it, they folded CNN Digital or something. So like
Interesting.
I dodged the bullet because I'd have been stuck immigration wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, it was fun. But also like about technical interviewing in that space. I think the questions were like, I'll say like a lead code medium when I did that, but it just came out well.
Okay.
I hate lead coding. So
Yeah, that was literally going to be my next question. All right. So how did we get to this stage or to this point where lead code style questions are sort of the de facto for how certain companies or the companies who pay the most money kind of vet candidates, right? How did we get to this point where lead code style questions is how we determine whether someone is technically hireable or not, right? Their ability to figure out, a stack or a queue or some weird data structure, right? How did we get to this point?
yeah. So the crazy thing is like, so I read a bit about this preparing for this interview, and in the old days, they would just so like if you it depends on how far back you go, right? In the old days when computers weren't very common, if somebody could decently use a computer, yeah, you could teach them, right? So before it was just like, hey, like just give you a pop quiz type question. If you have a pointer in C and then the pointer gets deallocated, what happens to that pointer, right? And then if somebody knows, they know, oh, it gets garbage collected at some point, right? And then maybe the person knows enough. You ask a few like questions that are like detailed that somebody that understands the nuance of something will get, and then that used to be good enough. Then what happened was they evolved to like, I don't know, did you ever interview at a consulting company like a McKinsey type place?
I actually did. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
So
I
they'd
did,
ask
yeah.
stupid questions like, I call them stupid actually. I think they are stupid. They'd ask you general intelligence questions or general deductive ability questions. So how many tennis balls does it take to fill a car? Or how many tires are there in something? It's a question that you ask management consultants. They might be good proxies for measuring intelligence and being deductive. And like, yeah, so that used to be a thing. So like if you Google about like what were interviews like in the 90s and early 2000s, it was generally questions like that, general intelligence questions. Some other companies used to do like when I got a job at InterSwitch, they used to ask like general psychometric questions, and then they hired people that studied computer science and figured that you would learn on the job. But yeah, those processes always just feel weird to me because they're measuring something as a proxy for measuring programming.
Yeah. It's like at the end of the day, right? If you've ever done any of those lead code style questions, then you know that's not what happens in an actual job, right? Like I always say this: if you write code the way you write if you try to take that same coding logic, the way you try to solve like a recursive question or whatever style lead code question, and you write that code in an actual job, it will flame your pull request because it's adding unnecessary complication. Unless if maybe that's the only way to solve it. In which case, good luck. You're working in a very, very complicated space. But now it then seems like they are less focusing on, okay, can you actually do this job? And more about how smart you are, right? Or how good you are how good are you in understanding concepts that are way harder than the actual job? So that way when they throw you in, you can actually figure it out, right? And it's then, I don't know, it's very interesting because part of me used to hate it, but I actually now enjoy it. I actually enjoy it.
Only you.
Only me. But that's also because it's kind of like a love-hate relationship where I felt it so much where I was like, all right, let me sit down. Let me put my head down into this thing, right? Let me figure this thing out. And the more you do it, you realize there are only X amount of questions that they could ask you. And it's one of these. And if it's a dynamic programming question, then you kind of know what to do. And in those, it's like, all right, you start with the hardest way to do it, and then hope that before it gets to the point where you do the actual 2D array or the 1D array for the dynamic programming, you actually run out of time because that's the, you know what I mean? That's the actual hard part, right?
Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting because ultimately you have, people like the guy who made, I think it was Brew, the guy who made Homebrew, who didn't get a job at Google because he failed one of the technical interviews.
I think it was Apple.
Well,
He didn't get a job at Apple,
yeah. And then they're like, yeah, you failed. But then 99% of the engineers are actually using software that he's built, right? So clearly that guy, he knows how to do the job and he has shown it. But, that hiring standard is very, very weird.
Yeah, but I think during a technical interview though, by the way, I am I'm an apologist for why the process is this way. So just context for everybody. But I think during a technical interview, there are only so many proxies they can measure, right? So for example, like being able to write code to solve an arbitrary problem, that might in itself, they probably know the process is broken, to be honest. But I think it's a proxy for, does the person care enough to put in the work? Ideally, in some scenarios, also there are lots of other complicating factors, but ideally they're trying to see the problem that they are asking you to solve should somewhat be related to what you would do at work, right? So data engineering interviews, for example, they would probably very rarely ask you graph questions because, like, even though I work with graphs at work, like I don't really program graphs. So you like asking those kind of questions are like begging, like there's no point in doing it most times. So they generally don't do it. But ideally, a good interviewer would have like actually tailored the question to sort of like what the domain like look like, even though obviously like it might be super esoteric within the domain, but they want to do that. Also, I think the ability to actually see somebody think through a problem and ask questions, I think that's super important because in your first 6 to 9 months at your new job, you're going to be needing to ask questions and you need to be able to stop yourself and go, hey, am I getting lost? Am I going to spend 3 days on something that somebody has a quick solution to? So I think like being able to solve the problem obviously is useful because it shows that you can actually program and you're not just generally intelligent like what they used to do in the old days, but it's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I was going to say, I completely agree. I think at some point in time when I was interviewing at Netflix, the question he asked me is a question that he has seen before or that he has asked so many people before because I looked on I was practicing for it on LeetCode and I looked at questions that Netflix has asked in the last X months. And then the problem that they asked me was actually there. And when I got the offer, the recruiter was like, yeah, all the feedback they got from you was great. And I was like, all right, can you tell me the specific feedback? And then out of everything, when she was reading out the feedback for me, there was more emphasis on the questions that I was asking them, right? How I was communicating through, right? When they gave me a hint to solve certain problems, did I actually go through with those hints, right? When I made certain assumptions, did I tell them, right? So there was more focus on, all right, how do I approach this ambiguous problem, right? Am I communicating properly? Am I thinking well? They probably know you know how to code, right? They probably know you know how to write code in some sense, right? And maybe at that point in time, that's not the bar that they're trying to raise, right? Like the sense, okay, you know how to write code. Do you know how to do these other things that are successful for the job outside writing the code, right? And that X amount of, what is it? That hour-long LeetCode session is definitely not the right proxy for them to gain those things. But in the setting that we are, it's the only kind of tool that we have.
Yeah, because like, I am not doing take-home assignments. Like, if you would pay me for the hours of my time, I will be doing a take-home assignment. Maybe I'll consider it. But I have too many other things going on in my life.
Oh, for sure.
Like, what do you mean I should go solve some problems on my own dime? Nah, bro, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
but it's very, very interesting. Let's see. So other than LeetCode, right? I think we had already started mentioning this. What are some other ways you would like to see companies test or measure this thing? Because what has happened now is people, in my opinion, people don't want to put in the work, or they don't want to. Let me be careful with my words. In my opinion, lead coding is hard. It's hard, right? And in order to get the highest paying jobs from these companies, they want you to think and pass this type of question. You can't want the money and not want to put in the work.
Yeah.
That's just the way the world works.
Yep.
Now, people have said, fuck, we are going to cheat the system.
Yeah.
And there are AI tools now that'll just screen record your screen as you're having these interviews, and then, just literally the second the interviewer pastes the question, they see it, and then from there, they just, like, the AI tool is just telling you exactly what to say, how to solve it, the code. The AI tool is basically telling you how to think about and process through all these things, right? So it seems like that's the norm now, and I think there was a GitHub repo of this kid that basically did it, and it's very interesting because people are like, the lead code style interview system is broken. We're going to cheat, right? Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that, or what's your take on that?
I think like anytime you're trying to measure something, that is always going to happen. Like I think it's, so for example, in the days where they used to ask those random questions about like how many balls fit into people started to publish books like LeetCode, right? Where they would start to collect those things. I think every system where you try to measure something, people were going to try to cheat it. And like, remember, the incentives behind people doing this stuff is really big. Yeah. If you do well in an interview at like Netflix, Ope and I, you are making ridiculous amounts of money. You're making 7 times the median income in America, like every year. And like, it's ridiculous how much money there is in it. So people are going to try to cheat. So I think that this is how it has to be. It's going to be an arms race between the employers and the employees and the prospective employees, because you're like, there is so much money behind this stuff. And honestly, before the AI tools, I'll tell you for a fact that I used to hear stories about people that will, when they were doing virtual on-sites, they would have a couple of their friends with them, and they would hook the screen up, Apple AirPlay, to a bigger screen, and the interviewer is asking them questions, but in reality, like, their friends are projecting the answers to the questions on the screen behind them. So there's always going to be a way. People are always going to try to cheat the system because like there's so much money. And also, if you also look at the fact that a lot of people in tech have like interesting visa situations. So it's a very, very...
It's a fight or flight thing.
Yes, it's a fight or flight thing. It's like
it's a do or die affair.
Yeah. I failed 5 interviews already. I need to get a job, and you're under some sort of pressure. You took a loan from your country to come or whatever. People are under a lot of pressure when they go into these interviews, right? So obviously, I'm not justifying why people cheat, but I'm just saying that people have cheated even before AI. And like LeetCode, somebody will tell you that LeetCode is actually cheating because like you're seeing questions and you can curate to see like, hey, what questions did this company ask over the past
X amount of months? Yeah,
it's not just LeetCode. They are like, you could go to Blind. There are lots of other things. People have friends in the company that tell them, hey, this is what our question bank looks like. So like, it's an arms race between the employers and the employees. That's the real truth. So I don't know a way around that.
I think ultimately what's going to happen is, for me at least, the way I think about it is, I have done one of those things where I vividly remember the question. It was, give me all the permutations of a string, right? Even before that, the first question he asked me was, say I give you a string, how will you check if there are duplicates in the string? I was like, oh, simple. As I go through the string, I'll store the, each one, and then if I see it again, I was like, oh, easy, simple. Okay. Write all the permutations. I'm like, all right, how do we get from contains duplicates to all permutations, right? If you've done LeetCode, those are, one of them is very simple, just a simple data structure and a for loop and an if statement. The other one is recursion and backtracking, right? And at that point in time, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to practice recursion. It was for an interview with Google. And I was like, all right, let me go Google this thing quickly. I saw the answer. I saw the code. But I couldn't explain I couldn't explain it to him in a confident way that he knew that I knew it and I wasn't reading off something.
Yeah.
And that was the first and last time that I was like, all right, hey, the ultimate truth is you either know it or you don't.
Fair.
Right? And if you don't know it, you're better off working with them, right, to come up with a solution, even if the solution doesn't work, right? Tell them how you think.
Yeah.
I've been in interviews where the code wasn't the end goal.
Yeah.
Right? For some of them, for a lot of them, for like Google, yeah, the code is the end goal. But for a lot of them, the code isn't the end goal, right? How do you approach this problem?
Yeah.
You're better off saying, okay, I'll do it this way. I'm thinking about this. We're thinking about it this way. Then they give you a hint. Do you take that hint, right? Do you actually take this bite that they've given you and then go with it, right? And that's what they're actually looking for. And that's when it hit me. I was like, all right, hey, if you haven't seen it before, that's fine. That's fine. Calm, right? You've done these problems 100 times, right? Where do you start with? Go through all your data structures. Does any of them look like they'll help you in this case, right? If not, all right, they are trying to find all the permutations or all the combinations of something. It means there's some backtracking involved. You know what I mean? Like, and then all that stuff. So typically, yeah, my whole thought process behind that stuff is just, you can't have both, right? Maybe you can cheat the system and then get in, but ultimately they will see through it, right?
I'm not sure. I think the real reason is this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think lead code is an arms race, and like Jerry, just interviewing is an arms race because you're trying to do better than everybody else, but because there are only 2 roles and they're interviewing 40 people, the interviewers need to discard people. So the questions will increasingly diverge from what the complexity of the actual problem they want to solve is. So you could actually cheat at LeetCode and be very good at your job. Because
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
no, when I say they're going to see it is, if you're not convincing enough that you know how to solve this problem, right? Because there's some things that you could just read out the way you're seeing it, but you don't understand it, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you this thing, but I don't actually understand this thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what I'm reading. That's it, right? And if that's the case, right? If there is no flow, if there is no back and forth, right? Or if they just tell you the question and you just say, you just it's a wrap. You know what I mean?
The good thing about us having AI now is that if you use Whisper, for example, I'm pretty sure if you hook Whisper up to like O1, OpenAI's O1 model, you will probably be getting like real-time support from the OpenAI O1 model, right? And honestly, it might not be perfect for your first 4 interviews, but after your first 6 or 7, you kind of figure out how to use O1 really well.
Yeah.
That's what I think. So I think like that arms race isn't going to get won just because of like, because like people are going to get more confident at using this tool over time.
For sure.
And there'll be AI tools that help you get confident at using AI
tools,
to cheat.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that arms race is going to evolve that way. So I don't really see how, like, I think like that's how I think about it. It's going to be that way.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm the goody 2 shoes here. So I'm always along the lines of, listen, man, put in the work, right? Once you figure it out, it never really goes away, right? It's kind of like building muscle. Even if you stop, the next time you come back to it, it's not as hard to build than when you never had it in the first place. So my thought process is just, do the work. There is LeetCode. Bro is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Go to LeetCode.io. He breaks down the problems into all these things, Then I haven't even stepped into systems design. That's a whole other bag of worms. But ultimately, I believe put in the work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also a goody 2 shoes. Like,
Yeah.
I will not cheat at an interview.
Yeah.
But also, I will also recognize for a fact that I am comfortable enough where if I fail an interview, there is really no repercussion to my life.
For sure.
Like,
For
I
sure.
have a decent quality of life.
Bro.
And like, I'm decently good at my job.
Which camera? That's my camera. Hey, if they'll put you on a boat,
Yo,
if they'll put you on a ship, right?
yo,
Open an extra tab and do what you need to do. If it's a do or die affair,
Gospel.
Do what
Gospel.
you need to do. Right?
Exactly.
If that's going to happen, but otherwise, do your practice. Take your time. Just think out loud, right? Just say what you're thinking. Literally, say what you're thinking. Except if it's something outlandish, right? But just say it. And typically, that's how most of the interviews that I have gotten, where I had no idea how to do this problem, because ultimately, what they've even started doing, to be honest, is they won't even ask you lead code questions. They'll make up their own stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they just want to see how you think.
Yeah.
So if you are cramming one lead code problem, well done, right? When I was doing my Netflix interviews, they asked me, how would I design a system where they use Netflix as a social media platform? This wasn't system design. This was coding. And so it was now in a situation where I was like, yo, all the lead code that I practiced, it didn't help me here. So what helped me there was just, all right, asking questions. What do you mean Netflix as a social? Do you mean, just blah, blah, blah. And then from there, we ended up with a method header, and then we ended up doing all that stuff. But wrapping up, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I have some. Honestly, LeetCode is a pain in the ass, but it's the way right now. And to be honest, like any other thing that people come up with is going to get gamed as well. If you have to go through the process, just put your head down, get to it, and just learn and just figure it out. There's it's your call if you want to cheat or not. That's on you. But put your head down and try to figure it out. You will get better at it. It's a muscle like every other thing. You just need exercise to get better at it.
Ultimately, man, I completely plus one there, right? Just the more you do it, the better you get at it. The first LeetCode problem I did, I was like, what is this? I'm not, nah. And now I coach people and I train people on those problems because I genuinely enjoy them and I know what they're looking for. And like I said, you're working certain muscles to ask questions, to follow up, to just explain your thought process and stuff like that. So ultimately, yeah, that's how you just get better at it. And as you said, today's LeetCode. When LeetCode goes, tomorrow it will be something else completely different. So, and you can't keep cheating. Except if they will put you on a boat and send you back home. I don't know why I'm using boat, but if it's a do or die affair, do what you need to. But ultimately, just put in the work. Ultimately, yeah. All right. That's it for this episode of Beyond the Build. Thanks for watching or listening on whatever platform that you're listening on. We will catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.